On Korean social media, especially on the forum thread and even on the famous news site SBS, people are heatedly discussing the topic and would make Vietnamese people frown. Is Vietnam becoming a scam hub like Cambodia? Some typical comments include people saying that now it's just a change of location from Cambodia to Vietnam. It's best not to go to Southeast Asia anymore because it. Immediately after, Vietnamese just laugh and can't help feeling a bit, because clearly those words mostly come from people who have never understood what kind of country Vietnam is. And perhaps those Koreans don't even know that Vietnam has been unified for a very long time. If only looking from afar, reading a few transnational criminals being arrested, people can easily label Vietnam as a scam hub, being a place where criminals spring up like mushrooms. But in reality, Vietnam has never been and will never be a land for that kind of criminal. Why? Because Vietnam has something that many other countries in the region lack, which is strict control, tight security, and the people's fear of exposing criminals. To understand why Koreans have that fear, we must first look at the story in which are the scam complexes that sprang up in Sahanoukville, in Poi Pat, in Abbott. Criminal organizations mainly run by Chinese people and partly by East Asians and Southeast Asia, creating scam dens, where workers are tricked into coming and forced to work in such call centers. They operate thanks to the laxity of the authorities and are softly protected by underground forces. The consequence is tens of thousands of people becoming victims, including many Koreans, Vietnamese, etc. And now we will dissect each worry of those Koreans sitting behind computer screens, to see how they have misunderstood Vietnam. Vietnam is completely different. Vietnam has no gray areas, no such inviolable zones. Just think, in Vietnam, is there any place that the government doesn't know? From neighborhood groups, ward police to the Ministry of Public Security, every residential area has records and is strictly managed. A strange rented household, a group of people coming and going at night, and within a few days, the ward police will. So some people joke that in Vietnam, even if Westerners get overcharged by taxis or street vendors, within a few hours, those people will have to return the money and apologize. And so, how could a scam organization operating online in secret possibly survive in Vietnam? In 2024-2025, Vietnam has cracked dozens of cross-border fraud cases. Just in October 2025, Vietnamese police coordinated with arresting 59 subjects impersonating military police to scam over 300 billion Viet, all within a short investigation period. Before that, in Hai Phong, in Bac Ninh, in Quang Ninh, hundreds of Chinese people entering illegally to set up online fraud were all discovered and deported within less than 24 hours. In Vietnam, high-tech criminals have no honeymoon period, because as soon as they show their faces, cameras, residence data, and security agencies find them immediately. Therefore, those who baselessly say Vietnam is becoming a second Cambodia are no different from saying Singapore is turning into Las Vegas. It sounds catchy but is extremely unreal. Vietnam does not have a lax environment like Cambodia. Does not have special zones where you can buy land and build walls like over wanting to rent an entire area to set up temporary residence records, business licenses, fire safety inspections, taxes, insurance. Missing one thing is many foreigners, especially some Korean netizens, believe that Chinese people are establishing bases in Vietnam. We will continue to prove that this argument is completely wrong. In reality, that is very unlikely to happen. Vietnam not only strictly manages Chinese people, but also strictly manages all foreigners in general. In 2024, Vietnam deported over 1,200 Chinese individuals who violated, mostly related to or suspected of participating in online gambling. In locations such as Nha Trang, Da Nang, Phu Quoc, Bien Duong, police regularly inspect and coordinate the management of rental houses and service departments. Any suspicious signs are immediately checked. Therefore, comments claiming that Chinese people are building bases in Vietnam are nothing but a joke and distortion. Not only because of strict laws, but also because Vietnamese people are highly vigilant to a house with lights on all night, windows sealed, and strangers coming and going. Neighbors immediately become suspicious, and in Vietnam, as long as citizens are, the police will promptly come knocking to inquire. Looking soberly, in reality, in Southeast Asian fraud cases, Vietnam is the victim, not the perpetrator. Thousands of Vietnamese have been deceived into going to Cambodia to work as marketing staff or something, then detained, beaten, and sold. Many of them believed in sweet promises, only to find out upon arrival that they were forced to work in. Therefore, when Vietnam cracks down hard, it is not merely a legal issue, but also about protecting national honor and safeguarding Vietnamese people, protecting its own citizens. Best response is also completely different from Cambodia. In Cambodia, it wasn't until international media and human rights organizations applied that the government began to gradually dismantle fraud, whereas in Vietnam, any sign is dealt with immediately. An online gambling operation somewhere, the police will detect and dismantle the entire network, confiscating computers, laptops, and the like. Fraud consultation schemes via Telegram and deceptive tricks on Facebook are also quickly on. Vietnam has had a cybersecurity law for several years, along with decrees requiring cross-border platforms to store data in Vietnam and cooperate and invest. That is an advantage that Cambodia does not have. There are also some Koreans who say Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Southeast Asia are all the same. But the reality is very different. In Vietnam, hundreds of thousands of Koreans live and work safely every day. And perhaps they should seek opinions from this very community. The Korean community in Vietnam alone numbers around 180,000 people. In Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Bac Ninh, places with factories of Samsung, LG, POSCO, Hyundai. If Vietnam were as dangerous as rumors, would these giant corporations dare to invest tens of billions of and should we bring thousands of employees here or not? The answer is already quite clear, isn't it? South Korea is currently the largest foreign investor in Vietnam. In 2024, FDI capital flow from South Korea to Vietnam exceeded $9 billion, although there were over 3.6 million South Korean visitors, accounting for nearly a quarter of total international visits. Of course, among those 3.6 million Koreans, none were reckless. And those Korean companies wouldn't foolishly pour money into unsafe places, right? It all stems from trust. Because wise Koreans understand that Vietnam is a safe, friendly, and trustworthy country. Cross-border transnational criminals can move. But Vietnam is not an easy land for them. Indeed, scammers from Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos always seek ways to go elsewhere when needed. But to survive in Vietnam, they will encounter hundreds of layers of control. From residency, cybersecurity to resident, everywhere has observers with public surveillance. Here, every house, every street has cameras. Along with neighborhood wards and civil defense, team run on electricity, there are. If Cambodia is where scammers dig their nests, then Vietnam is where they dig their graves. Because in Vietnam, there's no place for plugging in network cables and scamming the world without neighbors knowing. Are Koreans worried? That's also understandable. They've seen their compatriots being lured to doing easy work with high pay then are coming, but it's somewhat unfair to attribute that word because Vietnam itself is the country to combat this type of crime. Vietnamese police and Korean police have to share data on high-tech crime. The two countries have jointly investigated impersonating Korean banks in Vietnam, and in reality, Vietnam is not a debt, as many uninformed Koreans still say, but rather the fire extinguisher. Looking at the broader Southeast Asia picture, Vietnam is one of the safest countries according to an index called the Global Peace, temporarily called the Peace and Safety Index. Vietnam ranks 41st in the world, higher than Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. The violent crime rate in Vietnam is about 35% lower than the world. Cases of kidnapping, terrorism, or almost don't exist in Vietnam. Particularly, Vietnam's residential immigration and immigration management system is considered one of the safest systems in the world. We thank the countries that have used the data and integrated it for a long time. This helps quickly detect any abnormal activities. Not stopping there, Vietnam has taken an additional step to combat cybercrime, which is online. Both the United Nations and Interpol. Vietnam is one of the most proactive partners in Southeast Asia in the field of combating cross-border crime. In 2023, Vietnam demonstrated its capacity. This is clear evidence showing that Vietnam is not a hub of fraud, but a pillar in the fight against fraud. Therefore, when someone lacking knowledge says Vietnam is becoming a fraud hub after you can confidently, smile brightly, that our Vietnam is a country of discipline, community, and security, where lawbreakers never had the opportunity to operate across the world. Therefore, when someone lacking knowledge says Vietnam is becoming a fraud hub after our Vietnam is a country of discipline, community, and security, where lawbreakers never had the chance to take root. Cambodia may be a hotspot, but Vietnam is the new shield of Southeast, and that is a truth that not everyone in South Korea just reading the news can understand. Of course, I hope that only a very small portion of South Korea think that way. Thank you for your interest in following this story. If you find it, you can click the subscribe button for the subscribe to the Hidden Ledger channel and receive notifications. Share. Now, it's time to say goodbye. Subscribe to the Guillermo channels.